Hello, I'm Tanner Edwards,
I'm Charlie Bryant.
and this is the upcoming policies that concern the use of atrazine.
Overview of atrazine. Atrazine is under copious amounts of pressure concerning the use of the chemical. It's the second most popular herbicide in the U.S. It's used to stop the emergence of broadleaf and grassy weeds, mostly used in corn. Over 75% of corn in the U.S. is treated, and about 76 million pounds of atrazine is used each year, and it is applied both before and after planting. Support of atrazine use. Many farm organizations back the use of atrazine for many reasons. The Grange is one of many public interest groups that supports atrazine use. Syngenta, a major agribusiness, is publicly in support of atrazine. The support from these large groups is due to the effectiveness and low cost of atrazine.
The opposition against the use of atrazine. The main reason for opposition is the rumored causes on a negative life that atrazine has. Atrazine is also the most commonly detected pesticide contaminating U.S. drinking water. 40% of groundwater is contaminated, and 85% of streams are contaminated with atrazine. Lawn Stewards Project opposes atrazine because of the effects that it has on mammals, specifically amphibians. Atrazine causes reproductive problems, growth on organs, and organs actually do not form correctly if an amphibian or other mammal is contaminated with atrazine. The World Health Organization opposes atrazine because of the effects on humans. Atrazine is a possible carcinogen and has many reproductive problems when humans are exposed to this chemical. The policy that was found was Bill H.R. 2040 on May 17, 2013. Many policies surrounding atrazine have been geared toward regulations for the use of this chemical, but this one is actually for the complete banishment of atrazine. We can tell this because the first line of the bill reads, atrazine, a weed-killing pesticide, is the most common or the most widely used herbicide in the United States. The United States annually uses 65 million to 85 million pounds of atrazine. The toxicity of atrazine is well documented and has shown to have many adverse endocrine effects on amphibians, mammals, and humans.
The economic effect from the ban. European nations have already put a ban on atrazine. Doing the same in the U.S. would allow for larger trade options. The ban of atrazine would decrease productivity of growing many crops that are essential to the work of the United States. There's been a recent push for non-GMO crops to also increase trade. Actual and likely impacts: large fine and possible incarceration if caught using atrazine, no more than 2 years in jail, and a fine of no more than $25,000. The loss of an effective herbicide, higher cost to growers, and not as effective in corn production.
Unintentional impacts, one of which is the decrease in corn productivity more than initially predicted. The bill states that 1.9% will be lost in production and 2.3% in the acres planted in corn. This is actually likely to be a lot higher because of atrazine's wide effect on the broadleaf weeds and the low cost of it. Therefore, many farmers may not actually be able to afford a chemical. Which leads me to eliminating small-time growers. If they can't afford a chemical, then all these small-time farmers will now be completely out of a job. It will also decrease the total amount of earned on exports. The reason this is stated because even though Europe has a ban on atrazine and a ban on GMO, and the United States does not, just by pushing more for non-GMOs and atrazine corn, would actually decrease the amount that we earn from exports because we are not able to produce nearly as much as we initially predicted. There would be an increase of the cost between 3 and 16%, which would eliminate the small-time growers, like I've said earlier, and the decrease in jobs in agriculture because there are many jobs in the manufacturing and selling of atrazine that would actually be eliminated. There are many alternatives to the banishment of atrazine, even though Ackerman 2013, a scientific journal, actually wants to continue with the banishment of atrazine, pushes for it harder because all of the atrazine backers over exaggerate the effectiveness of the actual chemical, and 7 out of 10 weeds show resistance to atrazine. Malifaux in 2006 wanted to take a different route and want more of a push for containment of atrazine through many different methods. Some of these include the restriction of runoff, fine or taxation if runoff occurs, the furtherment of restrictions on use, making it hard to purchase, and a tax on atrazine, which would actually make it more expensive for farmers to grow. Johnson in 2012 wanted buffer zones to be in place for the use of atrazine. A buffer zone is the area in which atrazine is mixed far away from water on a concrete or some other a hard floor that can't actually seep through into the groundwater. Also, and he also wanted to implement a knife into ground atrazine rule, which means you would put the atrazine straight into the ground, which would decrease the runoff of the chemical into groundwaters. Once again, all of these are actually scientific journals. There have been no other alternatives to the bill that have been put into place for atrazine. These are all just scientific journals that have been sent to different policymakers and politicians to have a possible different outcome on atrazine.
In conclusion, atrazine has been used in the United States for many years and has continuously been under review by both private and government groups. There are strong arguments both for and against this chemical. Time will tell whether it will be completely eliminated or just closely regulated.
Here's the bibliography that contains the 3 different scientific journals that were looked at and the actual bill that has been put into place by politicians.